So last night, President Trump gives his big first official State of the Union address. And when I say big, I mean it was huge. And when I say it was huge, I mean it was long, like super long. Like it just ended 5 minutes before the show. It was really, really long. It was an hour and 20 minutes or so. It was the third longest State of the Union address ever recorded. In terms of number of words, it wasn't quite that long, but Trump's cadence is relatively slow. It was also quite successful. So the poll numbers show, according to CBS News poll, 75% of Americans thought that this speech was good. 75% of Americans thought this speech was unifying. Fully 43% of Democrats thought the speech was good. According to the CBS News poll, 91% favored what they heard on infrastructure. 81% said that the president was uniting the country. 75% approved of the speech. 75% favored what they heard on national security. And 72% favored what they heard on immigration. That, by any measure, is a massive success for the president of the United States. So we're going to go through this because there are really three aspects, I think, to the Trump speech that are noteworthy. One is the good, one is the bad, and one is the ugly. Okay, the good is a lot of what Trump did here. He did some great storytelling. Whoever wrote the speech did a great job of getting sympathetic victims in the stands. Everybody does the Ronald Reagan shtick where you get a bunch of people who sit up there in the rafters and then you say, and there's Bob. Bob's a great American. Hand for Bob. And everybody claps. Well, that's been misused for years and years. Trump did it right last night. We'll talk about all the things Trump did right. We'll also talk about the Democrats' response because the Democrats apparently had super glue attached to their asses. They literally did not get up for the entire speech. I mean, even on things where they agree, even on things like black unemployment is down and everybody's cheering. And then you look over and the Congressional Black Caucus is sitting. It's like, what are you, against black people working? What's your problem? I mean, there were times during the speech where Trump was saying things like, we all stand for the American flag. And you look over and all the Democrats are sitting. And Nancy Pelosi is chewing on her dentures. And you're thinking, is this really your strategy? So we'll talk about the Democratic strategy here because it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. They basically define themselves as the anti-Trump party as opposed to even the progressive party at this point. Even things they agree with, they will boycott if Trump is involved with them. And then there was so that was the ugly. And then there was the bad. The bad was Trump didn't say word one. It really was stuff Trump didn't say. So Trump did not talk at all about fiscal responsibility in this speech because Trump is not a fiscally responsible guy. Right? Trump doesn't care about deficits. He doesn't care about debts. He's more like George W. Bush than he is like Ronald Reagan on that score. He's certainly more like either of those than he is like Calvin Coolidge. He's not somebody who deeply cares about entitlements running out of control. He said this during the campaign. So he's been pretty obvious about the idea he doesn't mean to tamp down spending. He said in the speech that Obamacare is basically dead, which it isn't. He suggested in the speech that he wanted to blow out the spending on infrastructure to the tune of $1.5 trillion, which is not a conservative policy. He said he wanted paid parental and family leave. That is not a conservative policy either. He didn't say one word about reducing the federal deficit or the federal debt. That's because that's tough political stuff, and Trump doesn't want to touch all that stuff. So that's the bad stuff. But we'll go through it a little bit more in detail. So last night, Trump walks out, and pretty much everybody stands and claps. There are some Democrats, particularly members of the CBC, who will stand and clap for Louis Farrakhan, but they won't stand and clap for the elected president of the United States. Trump walks out and he takes the stage. And the first thing he does is he lays out the fact that he's had a very good economic first year. Here's what he had to say.
Since the election, we have created 2.4 million new jobs, including 200,000 new jobs in manufacturing alone. After years and years of wage stagnation, we are finally seeing rising wages. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. African-American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.
Now look at the Democrats. And there they are, right? Every Democrat is sitting. Black people working? No. Trump's evil. And then Trump continues, and he's talking about the economy a little bit more. One of the things that I think was really fascinating about what he said here is he actually makes a case that was not made during the tax cut debate. This is why the polls were bad on the tax cuts. So if you look at the actual poll numbers on the tax cuts, the poll numbers suggested that most Americans thought they were losing money on the tax cuts, which of course was not true. Nearly everybody gets money back thanks to the tax cuts. That's because the Republicans had failed to actually talk about what the tax bill would do for the average American family. They're talking in broad terms about what tax cuts do generally. Trump did a good job, I think, of summing that up last night.
Typical family of four making $75,000 will see their tax bill reduced by $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half. In April, this will be the last time you will ever file under the old and very broken system and millions of Americans will have more take-home pay starting next month. We eliminated an especially cruel tax that fell mostly on Americans making less than $50,000 a year, forcing them to pay tremendous penalties simply because they couldn't afford government-ordered health plans. We repealed the core of the disastrous Obamacare. The individual mandate is now gone.
Right, so this is all good stuff that the American people have to hear because the media have been making a corrupt and untrue case that tax cuts hurt the American economy and that repeal of Obamacare's individual mandate is going to kill millions of Americans and all the rest of all of this. And Trump, I think, forcefully spoke back against this. Now, the bad side of this is when Trump says the core of the disastrous Obamacare is gone. What that suggests is he's not going to do anything else on Obamacare, that basically he thinks his work is done here. That, of course, is untrue. But this is good stuff from the president. And then the president says something that I think a lot of Republicans have not been saying, which is when you lower the corporate tax rate, you are going to make more money. And the proof is in the pudding. When we lower the corporate tax rate, jobs come back to the United States. And not only do jobs come back, you're probably going to get a raise. So here's what Trump had to say about that.
We slashed the business tax rate from 35% all the way down to 21%. So American companies can compete and win against anyone else anywhere in the world. These changes alone are estimated to increase average family income by more than $4,000.
Right, that last statistic is the one that Republicans really should have been focusing on during the entire tax debate, is why is it that when you lower corporate tax rates, people's income goes up? Instead, they focused on the individual tax rates dropping. They should have been focusing on the really major change to the law, which was that major reduction in corporate tax rates. And it was a major reduction in corporate tax rates. So Trump starts off, and this is a full 20 minutes on the economy, which is exactly what he should do. Because if Trump is going to win re-election, if Republicans are not going to get shellacked in 2018, there has to be a feeling that the economy is on the move, and it's on the move because Republicans have done the right things. And the truth is, it is on the move because of that. You know, the economy was already improving under President Obama, obviously. The stock market was up under President Obama. Job growth in 2016 was better than job growth in 2017 by a couple 100,000 jobs. But the reason that wages are rising, the reason why businesses are hiring, the reason people feel a sense of optimism is because there's a sense of trust that the Republicans and Trump are not going to clock businesses in the back of the head. There's always the feeling with Democrats and with Obama that from some angle, he was going to find a way to hit businesses because he didn't like businesses. You don't get that feeling with Trump, and that came out last night. Okay, so I want to talk in a minute about some of the more dramatic moments of the Trump speech because there were some there were some moments of tremendous drama in the Trump speech. We'll continue going through the State of the Union and things that Trump does, and he's always talked about doing this, and he actually did it well last night, is he always said that America needs a cheerleader. When people said, what does the president need to do? He would say America needs a cheerleader. Now, listen, the president has to do more than that, obviously. But one of the things that I think Trump does have the capacity to unify on is he does have a gut-level sense of nationalistic patriotism. Right? The guy does like the flag. He does like the military. He does like the country. He doesn't feel bad about America. You always got the sense from President Obama that he was more concerned with the flaws in America's thought patterns and in the American people than in the glories of them. Last night, Trump didn't spend any time lecturing Americans about the better angels of their nature, about this is not who we are, this kind of stuff. Instead, President Trump talked about the wonderful things about it. It was a much more optimistic speech than Obama's. This is one of the great things about how the media has covered this. The media said it was a dark speech. This speech was significantly more optimistic about the state of the United States than anything Obama ever said. Obama would always say the state of our union is strong, and then he would proceed to list off all of the racial problems that we had in the United States and discrimination against women, and how America was still a backwards, racist, bigoted, homophobic country, and how we all had to fix that. Trump last night got up there and said, listen, America's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. And now's the time for you to make something yourself. This is clip 4. So Trump really cheerleading America, and of course, Democrats sitting.
This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
Okay, and everybody cheers except for the Democrats, right? The Democrats won't cheer for you can achieve anything in America because they hate Trump so much. And it went even further than that. So Trump calls on this young kid, Preston, who's sitting in the family box for Trump's speech, And this kid apparently has helped put down something like 40,000 American flags on the graves of fallen service members. And Trump says this, and watch as the Democrats sit.
Young patriots like Preston teach all of us about our civic duty as Americans. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem.
Okay, and he looks over kind of concernedly at the Democrats as they sit there. The Democrats have painted themselves into a box. This is the problem with being both intersectional and anti-Trump. So the Democrats have a couple of problems. Problem number one is that they've decided to define the personality of their party. They've decided to define that as we hate Trump. That's not enough. Okay, you can dislike Trump. That's all well and good. But that's only going to matter every 4 years. The real question is, do people have a good sense of your party? Do they feel like yours is a party that cares about the United States? And when you see Democrats sitting for, we proudly stand for the national anthem, because they've boxed themselves into this idea that it's bad to say that we should stand for the national anthem, most Americans don't buy that. Most Americans don't like that. Most Americans think that that's stupid. Right? The fact is that the Democrats are doing this now because they've engaged in this intersectional politics of hate, in which they suggest that if you're a member of a minority group in the United States, then you rightly are sitting for the national anthem or kneeling for the national anthem. And Democrats could have taken a middle position. The middle position would have been, we like to stand for the national anthem. We think it's dumb not to stand for the national anthem, but of course you have the right to disagree and not stand for the national anthem. That's what they should have said about Colin Kaepernick. Instead, people, including Barack Obama, came out and said they thought there was a certain heroism to not standing for the national anthem because America was so cruel and so terrible. Most Americans don't think America is cruel and terrible. Most Americans think America is pretty damn great.
We will make America great again.